Mason Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer, took some lineups home on Saturday night. Is Tommy DeVito going to be our guy on Monday? We got a 3-gamer here, Tyson, for Christmas. I think this one's going to be pretty fun, dude.
Dude, we actually have some great quarterbacks playing on this day. We've got Mahomes, Lamar, Jalen Hurts. This is going to be great, man. Let's do it. Welcome to the Edge DFS. My name is Tyson Smith, joined by Ellie Hernandez. Ellie, I did not mention Brock Purdy there. Just pure out disrespect on my part, right? You get the leader for MVP. We didn't even bring him up. We will bring him up a lot in this one. Ellie, Merry Christmas to you and your family, and Merry Christmas to everybody out there watching. We appreciate it. We'll try to get through this show as quick as possible. Probably want to grab a drink and sit down, though. I'm assuming this will be 45 minutes or so, but we got a 3-gamer. A lot to talk about here, man. There's some great games here. A couple teams that aren't so great, that might not have a lot to play for, but, you know, they're playing for pride at this point. Let's look at these matchups here. All right. So, first game. Raiders going into Arrowhead against the Chiefs. This is a 41 total. Chiefs are favored at home by 10.5. You got the Raiders coming off of an absolute spanking of the Chargers, who basically gave up. We saw the Chargers almost win the game yesterday. So that just goes to show, maybe the Chargers weren't as bad as that score provided. But look, the Raiders, they have a little bit of momentum. They're coming off, what was that, Thursday night game, so they have a little bit extra rest. They're playing hard for Antonio Pierce. Do I think that they're going to win this game? Probably not. This is a division rivalry game, and the Chiefs have been sort of struggling, you know, on and off. They haven't really hit their stride. It'd be nice to see them come out and put up 35 points in this game and play well on defense, you know, as they're getting ready to go into the playoffs. They really need to win. Like, if they win the last 3 games, and they have a pretty easy schedule, they could secure that first seed in the AFC potentially. So a lot on the line here. Tony isn't playing, so we don't have to worry about that. Not a ton of injuries to talk about, but, you know, you got McKinnon out. I believe they just placed McKinnon on the IR. We'll get to more injuries in a minute. But thoughts on this matchup overall, Ellie? 41-point total. The Raiders, can they keep up in this one? Like, would you consider Raiders live to cover that 10.5 points?
Yes, and I don't necessarily know if this is on the Raiders, but look, man, until someone on the Chiefs can start catching a fucking football, I'm just not convinced that like a 10.5-point spread is ideal for them. Look, man, this was earlier in the season, week 12, right? They won by 2 touchdowns last time. I think it's going to be a little bit different of a game, but look, man, just the Chiefs offense. I love Patrick Mahomes. We all know what he is, but like, goddamn, man, they cannot catch a fucking football.
Dude, Taylor Swift, you know, sucked the talent out of Travis Kelce at this point. And look, I'm not blaming him. You know, he's really the only guy that teams need to focus on. I mean, Rashee Rice has looked good. Don't get me wrong. But a true number 1 wide receiver that could take the top off the defense, they don't really have to worry about that. So these defenses are just bracketing the hell out of Travis Kelce. And the funny thing here is, dude, Travis Kelce might not be that high owned. It might be a contrarian play to stack him up. I'm never going to not play Travis Kelce when he's available, because he has 3 touchdown upside at the drop of a hat any game. That Josh Jacobs big game where he had that, I think it was like a 76-yard run, that was against the Chiefs. He's questionable. Josh Jacobs is. That's a kind of a big deal. You got Devontae Adams on the slate. Dude, there's so many big-time wide receivers on this slate, and a lot of them are very expensive. So if we're going to go heavy, you know, Hurts or any of these expensive stacks, it might be hard to get some of these other talented guys that can absolutely break the slate. You saw Travis Kelce had 6 receptions for 91 yards. Rashee Rice, 8 for 107 and a touchdown. Pacheco's coming back. So what are your thoughts matchup wise on this one, dude? Like the Chiefs, the Chiefs blitz a lot, 4th highest rate in the league, and they have the 4th highest amount of sacks. Going up against AOC, That's probably their easiest path to sort of causing trouble and making this a little bit of an easier game, is have the defense help you out and put a stop to these guys. They put up 63 points last week. It ain't happening again. I'd be surprised if they put up 3 touchdowns in this one, but you never know. This is a division rivalry game. But that Arrowhead crowd, dude, I don't think people understand how big of a home field advantage they have. So no pressure on the Raiders at this point. They're playing free. They have an interim coach. Any chance we see a little bit of a closer game here? I think so. Do you agree with me? And how do we attack that DFS wise?
I mean, look, I think we kind of look back to Chargers Bills. It's a great game to it's so fresh to kind of just keep in mind what a 10-point spread is, right? Looking at yesterday's games, the game that we thought was going to be a blowout was really, really close. And the game that we thought was going to be close was a blowout. So these are professional athletes, man. They're on a squad for a reason. So I do think 10.5 points is a lot, right? So I know Vegas is being safe, but this could easily be a 1-score game, man. And I think that's something to keep in mind when we go to build. Las Vegas, you're going to have some exposure to Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers, right? There's going to be some guys that are going to have some shot, but I think you can consider some stacks here. And again, I don't want to be crazy, but if you keep dropping passes, man, you let bad teams hang around, right? That's where the Chiefs are right now. That's why they've lost some games as of late. So look, man, I'm not saying that the Raiders are going to go out and win this game, but I do think that they can be moderately competitive if the Chiefs keep giving them second opportunities on offense.
Let's move on to this next game here. By the way, that first game was at 1 p.m. Eastern. The next one here is at 4:30 Eastern. This is the Giants and Tommy DeVito going into Philadelphia against the Eagles. The Eagles have been struggling but they're still 13.5-point favorites at home here. 43 total. If you look at their schedule, man, it's been rough. Like, I know there's a lot of people down on the Eagles. Their offense has not looked good. But they played the Cowboys. They beat the Cowboys, the Chiefs, and the Bills. And then they lost to the 49ers. They lost to the Cowboys. And then they lost in that tough game against Seahawks. They should have won that game. I believe what was it at the end of the game that they needed to get the first down. They couldn't quite get the first down. The Eagles gave the ball back to Drew Lock, and with a great catch, JSN wins them the game. I feel like, yes, this team is kind of trending down, but it's still the Eagles, dude. They're still 10-4, still a lot to play for. And guess what? They're going up against the Giants, dude. I know we've seen the Giants look better. They lost to the Saints in the last game. They had a little 3-game win streak going on. What are your expectations for this one, man? Like, to me, this feels like a pretty obvious, like, stack Jalen Hurts because he might be a little underowned. I don't know. By the way, in the comments, what do you guys think his ownership will come in at? Are people going to be scared to play him? What are your thoughts on this matchup, dude? I don't think we can overthink this. Like, play Jalen Hurts, play some of these offenses, get to some DeAndre Swift. AJ Brown's going to be expensive. Devontae Smith is priced up a little bit. But then run it back with some of these scrub kind of New York Giants pass catchers, because we know this Eagles defense is terrible against the pass.
Yeah, man. I think that's the way to do it, right? The Giants wide receivers are all just really underpriced for the matchup. They suck. We know they suck. The Giants suck in general. So I understand maybe not necessarily pricing them up, but they're all 3,300 or whatever. They're all in the 3K. So on a slate, on a 3-gamer, we're going to be looking for some value. I really expect Wandale to probably be pretty chalky just because of his price.
Yeah.
But look, man, like, I don't know how you don't attack this game. Like, this is one of those ones, like, you got to start thinking about it. If you think it's going to be a blowout, if you think that this line is moderately accurate, right? Like, I think you kind of build that way. Like, you don't need to go 3 wide receivers or Jalen Hurts plus AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. You may be able to go Hurts, a running back, and then AJ Brown or something along those lines. So yeah, I think there's ways to get creative with Philly specifically in a game like this. But yeah, man, you got to target this one. I think there's a lot of value on the Giants side. And right, the return of Darren Waller.
Yeah, Darren Waller's back. So I don't think people are going to even realize that. They might not even click his name. I'm always going to play some Darren Waller if he's on the field and actually even 60% healthy. I'm playing him. So Brett Coleman came out with a really good video on YouTube. You guys should check this out before setting your lineups here. he basically broke down why this Eagles offense is struggling so much. And they're not using motion. They're running everything out of the shotgun, and they're running a lot of inside zone in the shotgun. So their run game has been consistent around 4 yards per carry or whatever, but you're not going to get, they're just not getting a ton of these big plays. We see the 49ers, we see the Dolphins. They run under the center, they run motion, they run the outside zone, and it works for them really good. What ends up happening with this Eagles team is they just end up just chucking it down the field. They don't use the middle of the field, and they just throw it. They basically just chuck it down the field to A.J. Brown and pray that he catches it. They just need to evolve a little bit here. And if they could do so, just change up their strategy a little bit, maybe we see a little bit better. We know they're talented, so maybe we see some better results from them. It was a really interesting video to try to get some insight on that. Now, look. Dexter Lawrence is probably the best interior defensive tackle in the league. This guy can absolutely destroy your pass rush as well as the run game for the opposing team. He is questionable, but you want to talk about a guy stopping the tush push. This is the guy. Now, if he plays, I think this defense gets a slight boost, and I think maybe I know he's a defensive tackle, but I think there's a chance that maybe this game stays a little closer. If he's out, I load up on your DeAndre Swift, load up on your Hurts. I know that it sounds like I might be overreacting, but this guy's a game changer. He's stuck on a terrible team. Nobody really knows how good he is. He's normally in the 0 technique, but he can move into the 3 technique. He can completely clog up the middle of that offensive line. So something to think about with him. If we get news that he's out, it does change my opinion a little bit on how I'm attacking the slate. The Giants' pass defense is not bad, dude. Attack them on the ground. I think this is a prime spot for Swift. Others will come in and say, "Give me some Boston Scott," because of the history between Boston Scott and the Giants. In fact, he's the most bet player to score a touchdown at plus 350, which is absolutely insane to me. You might see 2 plays with Boston Scott. It almost feels like they go out of their way to get Boston Scott touchdowns. I'm not playing Boston Scott. If I'm doing showdown, maybe a 1 or 2 lineups, but he's not going to make it into my player pool most likely. We've got A.J. Brown possibly going up against the rookie Deonte Banks here. They're 6 foot 205, 4.3 speed against 6'1", 226. I don't care who you put up against A.J. Brown. I'm going to take A.J. Brown all day, and I think his ownership's going to be so low because I think he's the second highest priced guy on the slate, or third. He's up there. What are your thoughts on this pass game, man? It has not been very effective. Can we load up on any Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith stacks? I think that there's some leverage to be had there, and you have a super high floor with Hurts.
Yeah, I mean, look, Eagles defense isn't great. So if there's a time for the Giants to score some points, this would be it. So I think the Hurts and the offense are going to be throwing a little bit more. Now, I don't know if you need to get too crazy, right? Again, I don't know if you need to stack Brown and Smith, but look, AJ Brown, he'll eat against this defense. There's not Isaiah Simmons might be the best guy that has a body to be able to cover him. He might be the best athlete, but he can't fucking cover him. He's a safety linebacker, right? So look, man, AJ Brown is going to be an opportunity to just eat against this defense. I like him. I know that the Giants pass defense might look good, but again, they're losing teams, so teams tend to run the ball more against them. So kind of take some of that with a grain of salt, and I think don't let it be something that pulls you off the Philly pass game.
With the amount of great wide receivers on this slate, you brought up a good point. Do I need to double stack Hurts? Maybe not. I actually love playing Hurts and Swift together, and then maybe grabbing Goddard or grabbing one of these 2 top end wide receivers from this team, and then calling it a day. Because when I was building earlier, it just felt like I needed more room for wide receivers. We've been talking about on these 2 or 3 game slates how the double tight end is kind of been appealing because of how cheap they can get and some of the injuries we've been dealing with. I don't know that we go that route on this slate. We do have some damn good tight ends, so I'm comfortable getting to some, but this isn't going to be a rule that I set up by any means because of all the talent we have at wide receiver. All right, let's go to the next game. This game might be the game of the year, dude. Like, we're going to do a showdown specific video on this game just for our members. If you guys are interested in joining our YouTube members, click the join button down below. It's $3.99. We do a Monday Night Football game every week. And as we start to transition out of Monday Night Football, we'll do a special show for you guys, a showdown show. But this game, man, I'm looking forward to this, man. Both teams 11-3. This is a potential Super Bowl preview. You have the 49ers super hot, great defense. The Baltimore Ravens pretty hot, great defense. This feels like a game. It's a 47 total. It's in San Francisco, so we don't really have to worry about weather most likely. This feels like a game that could hit the under just because of all that's at stake here. The 49ers are favored by 6 at home. Do you agree with that? Like, this feels like a Baltimore Ravens cover/under hitting. Everybody in the world is going to stack this game. Everybody playing this Christmas slate is going to go heavy on this game. I think maybe you might want to go heavy game stacks or stacks in general from these other two games and then sprinkle in the best talent from these guys. What do you think, dude?
Yeah, man. Look, it's going to be hard paying up for guys here unless we get some news that maybe like Zay Flowers doesn't end up playing or something along those lines. But like, before we even get too crazy about the injury stuff, like I would just assume that if somebody's questionable, they're probably playing. This is a Christmas Day game, right? Like, all these are Christmas Day games. So like, if you're going to show up, these are games you're going to show up for outside of the playoffs. So that said, like, unless some value opens up here, like, I think it's going to be really hard to aggressively stack this game. But I also think that, like, not to be a dickhead to anybody who's a casual player locking in or watching the show for the first time, but you're going to get a lot of casuals who are going to target this game specifically because they know the players here. But you know who Brandon Ayuk is. You may not know who Darius Slayton or Wan'Dale Robinson are. So, like, that's something to keep in mind when you're going to build. You have a bunch of people hand building. They're going to be jamming in this game specifically.
Yes.
So, and then look, man, -6. I'm going to be realistic. Like, again, that's kind of crazy for a team like the Baltimore Ravens. Like, the Baltimore Ravens are a good team. I think people just disrespect Lamar Jackson. He's never had a suitable team around him. Like, honestly, think about it. The best wide receiver he's ever had is Marquise Brown for a little bit, and then Odell Beckham Jr. here in his like 19th year. So, look, man, I don't underestimate what Lamar Jackson can do with this offense. I think they'll be fun.
Look at this all-star group of cast members here, dude. You got Purdy, who's the most disrespected quarterback in the league. Game manager, my ass. I don't care what you say about the guy. Try having Brock Purdy sit on the bench for a game and see how this team does. They're healthy. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Kittle, McCaffrey. That's like a make-believe team that you make up on Madden. It's insane. You got Joey Bosa, Fred Warner, Trevarius Ward, Brown. Like, this defense is just as damn stacked as the offense. You got Warner as probably the best linebacker in the league. You go to the other side, you got Roquan Smith is probably the second best linebacker in the league. And you got Kyle Hamilton, who's probably the best safety in the NFL right now in his second year. He's ranked 7th according to PFF. The guy's going to be in the slot. He's going to be moving around, and he's the perfect guy to counteract this screen, the screen offense from the 49ers. Like, who do you want blowing up a screen play to Deebo Samuel? Kyle Hamilton's the guy. Thoughts on this matchup as far as this defense, dude? Like, what can we target? I mean, all these guys are incredible, but to me, a guy like Kittle, with Kyle Hamilton and Roquan Smith roaming around back there, a down game. What are your thoughts overall, dude? This is a tough matchup for both offenses. I don't care how good they are.
Yeah, man. So look, the first thing I want to address is Brock Purdy. Like, I think he's absolutely an MVP candidate. But I was listening to the radio, and they had an interesting take, right? Like, it's kind of hard to have that person as an MVP when you have, what probably should be the second leading MVP candidate, right, on your team in Christian McCaffrey. So, that said, I think there's a lot of, like, I don't want to spend too much time talking about this man because this has nothing to do with DFS, but I think there's a lot of similarities with this team. And then the fucking 2001 Rams, or maybe it was the 99 Rams, right? When Kurt Warner kind of stepped in. Kurt Warner, right? You could say the same thing about him. You have Marshall Faulk, Torrey Horvat, all these guys on the team. It could have easily been MVP candidates. But look, man, Purdy's making it work. You can say what you want about being a game manager, but at the end of the day, if you're managing to throw quick slants that end up in the fucking end zone, you're doing your job as a quarterback. So I think that's what made Tom Brady so successful. People thought he was a game manager for his first 3 Super Bowls. But you know what he did? He won 3 Super Bowls. So call me what you want, but he's probably going to go out and win. That said, like let's take it back to the DFS perspective. I also think this is probably outside of the Cowboys game. This might be the toughest defense that they've faced all year.
Yeah.
They play the Cardinals, they play the Seahawks, right? They play the Rams. Those are all porous defenses. So it's not like the Niners are out here practicing against the elite of the elite in a game situation. So like that's something you can keep taking in mind here. And I do think to your point, it's possible this game does come to the under because again, this isn't two shitty teams playing where you're just sloppily getting to a certain score or you're sloppily not getting points. These are two defenses that have serious playoff implications. This game is one of the ones that sets your tone for the remainder of the season.
Yes.
So, I mean, goddamn, it's the last Monday night game. There's the last game on this whole slate. So,
Yep.
It's an important game, man. I think it's one that is probably going to hit the under, to be honest.
I feel like everybody in the country is going to be watching this game. I mean, this is going to be an incredible game. A lot of pressure behind it. This hits the under, in my opinion, and I think the Ravens cover. Let's get to our injuries.
Yeah, just pain. It was pain everywhere.
So let's start with this game. Zay Flowers is questionable, dude. He had 2 full practices. It looks like when you see that, you know, a guy's probably trending towards playing. Besides that, you have some other pieces here that are out. Nothing super notable DFS wise. Armstead out for the Niners. You got Dwelly out. Hargrave. You got some other guys here, but the guy we really need to talk about is Juwan Jennings being out. Now, Juwan Jennings doesn't get involved a ton, but he's on the field all the time because he's an incredible blocker. Just like any other player, wide receiver on this team, they're going to be incredible at blocking or they're not going to see the field. So what does that mean? Like, we'll have to talk about that here. Are we interested in Ronnie Bell or any of these dudes? I don't think so because this offense is so concentrated. Even if Juwan Jennings was the bare minimum price, I probably wouldn't get to much of him. Now, this is a 3-game slate, so we got to get creative. Elijah Mitchell is questionable. He's been out for a few weeks here. If he's active, I might get to maybe 1 or 2 lineups with him. But this is not an easy situation for any running back on both sides of the field. So I don't think there's a whole lot of to be waiting on for this game. Juwan Jennings, does that move the needle for you at all? If this was Showdown, it definitely does, but not for a 3-gamer.
No, I think the most important injury here is just Zay Flowers. I think he's fine. He'll play, but if he doesn't, that'll open up guys like Rashad Bateman, for example. But yeah, outside of that, I don't think there's anything too crazy here.
All right, so Eagles. Devontae Smith was banged up with a knee. He was limited in practice. He says he'll play, so we don't have to worry about him not playing. How much are you worried about him maybe not being even 70%? Like, what are your thoughts? Like, are you waiting on reports, or hey, this is Devontae Smith. You're just going to have to get some shares of him if he's playing?
Yeah, no, Devontae Smith's fine. Again, like I think if you're questionable, you're probably playing. It's a Christmas game. That said, he's just kind of a lankier, like a thinner wide receiver. He's kind of just been permanently questionable since like year 1 at Alabama. So it's just one of those things you have to deal with a guy like him.
So Zach Cunningham, the linebacker, out. Landon Dickerson, the guard, out. Darius Slay, out. And you got Avonte Maddox still out. This defense is banged up, man. You have a rookie corner who played okay. Bradbury last week got picked on. The rookie corner did okay, but like even more so, if the Giants are ever going to have a game where they put up a couple touchdowns in the air, this is probably the game, which is why I think sprinkling in some of these cheap-ass wide receivers from the Giants is probably the way to go. Like I said, Dexter Lawrence, questionable. Keep an eye on that. That's really the biggest news that we need to look at here. And we've got Waller back. Darren Waller is back. I'm going to play some Darren Waller. Like on paper, if he's healthy, he's to me a top 5 tight end in the league. So nobody's going to be talking about him. His ownership is going to be super low. That's a quick way, obviously a guy coming back from an injury, but that he could put up a 0, but it's a quick way to kind of get some leverage on the field. First game, some actual serious injuries to talk about here. Kadarius Toney and Jerick McKinnon out. Thankfully, Kadarius Toney is out. Does that open up any room for a guy like Richie James? Like, dude, I've been talking about Richie James for a few weeks now. Is he going to see more offensive snaps this week? Are you just straight up just boosting? Mecole Hardman's still out, so like, who gets those reps that like sort of, that wide receiver that can get the end arounds, that can get these trick plays that they like to do, especially in the red zone. Give me Richie James to score an anytime touchdown in this one. I think he sees the field a little bit more. What are your thoughts on this? And with Kadarius Toney and Jerick McKinnon now ruled out, we've got Pacheco back. How interested are you in Pacheco? You just have to play some Pacheco, right?
Yeah, man. I think you consider some Pacheco. I think you consider some Seh as well. Let's just. I mean, to summarize, like, we'll get to it when we get to the positional breakdown here. But none of these guys. This slate came out before these injuries were announced. These guys were questionable, so it's very likely that the Chiefs are just mispriced in relation to what they should be, considering these guys are out. Wide receivers probably aren't overly impacted just because Toney hasn't necessarily, shown up this season. But I think at the running back spot, right, Pacheco is not going to be priced like he's the starter, or he's going to be priced like McKinnon's playing. And then that said, I think Seth's going to play, but obviously we need to keep an eye on that. He has the personal issue going on, whatever it is. Again, it's Christmas. I fully expect everybody to play. That's questionable.
And Toney has had opportunity. He just hasn't come through with it. So, like, maybe there's another guy that gets one of these red zone opportunities that completely screws things up for everybody on this slate. Michael Mayer, the rookie tight end for the Raiders, is out. Austin Hooper, dude. Like, I'm pretty sure Austin Hooper is bare minimum, like, priced. We could maybe plug Austin Hooper in as some value on this slate. I'm not going to go super heavy, but he's probably going to be 5% owned, maybe 10% owned. I'm interested in getting to some Austin Hooper a little bit. He's not typically used in the pass game that much. So that's why they have Michael Mayer. But you got a min price tight end be getting most of the reps. You got to think about playing it. Now, I buried the lead here. Josh Jacobs, with the quad injury and an illness, is officially questionable. We saw Zamir White come in and do well. What are we thinking here for Josh Jacobs? If he plays, another expensive guy that we got to try to fit in, what are we doing here with Josh Jacobs? And what are we doing with Zamir White if Josh Jacobs is out?
Yeah, I mean, if Jacobs is out, then Zamir White's probably one of the better plays on the slate, just I guess from a salary perspective. But even then, man, like I think there's other places to probably target. There's just too much value at the wide receiver spot on New York, and even if something happened here where you got a min-priced running back, that the min price is $4K versus a 3,300 Wandale, or I think that's Slayton, or 3,800 Wandale. So, look, man, I don't think it opens up too much. Obviously, if Jacobs plays, you want to play him against a Chiefs defense. I think AOC, right, take a little bit of pressure off of him by handing it off to your workhorse.
Let's get to this breakdown here. Break it down. So we've got Jalen Hurts, $7,600, Patrick Mahomes, $7,500, Brock Purdy, $67. The disrespect there. And then you got Lamar Jackson at $74, Tommy DeVito at $5, and AOC at $52. I feel like Jalen Hurts, to me, is one of these guys that I'm going to want to get involved. He's going against the Giants defense. Narrative-wise, this team has been absolutely annihilated this week. You have to think they're going to come out highly motivated. Their season kind of depends on it. Like, this is a great get-back spot for them, or get-right spot for them. Hurts at 7,600, I'll pay up for him. But, dude, we have Hurts, Mahomes, Purdy, Jackson, Lamar Jackson to talk about here. Is there any reason for us to get to Tommy DeVito and Aiden O'Connell? Like, I know they're cheap, so, like, if we want to stack a lot of these high-priced dudes, Maybe we get to some stacks with DeVito, but like the Rudolph stuff yesterday, like we've seen plenty of these backup quarterbacks. Mullins in a slate a couple of weeks ago. We've seen plenty of these guys come out and pay off their salary. If Tommy DeVito gets 19 fantasy points because he rushed for 50 yards and got a rushing touchdown and also threw a passing touchdown at 5K, is that enough? You know what I mean? Like we saw it with Josh Allen. Like he still ended up being like the optimal guy. Or at least he was up there as very successful. I don't even know if he was optimal because of Mason Rudolph. Probably not. But my point here is, can we pay down for any of these cheap dudes? Because everybody and their brother is going to be playing Hurts, Mahomes, Purdy, Jackson. Like the ownership on these cheap guys is going to be so low. And if they just have a ceiling game randomly on Christmas, you might need them. What are you doing here with quarterbacks?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you get exposure to the studs. Jalen Hurts is always an excellent play. He has the rushing touchdown upside. We know who Pat Mahomes is. Purdy is one of the best offenses we've ever seen. And Lamar Jackson. So the guys we really need to focus on here, I think, for the segment is just Danny DeVito and AOC, right? Tommy DeVito, he's going to be a little bit owned. He's going up against a terrible pass defense. So, I don't know if you necessarily need to get crazy with him. I think he could probably be with the field. But Aiden O'Connell is a guy that I'm going to be taking some stabs at. Like, again, let's just put it in perspective. These two quarterbacks are supposed to be in games where they're losing by 10 plus points. Like, what do we think is going to happen the whole game if you're supposed to be losing by 10 plus points, right? Like, they're not going to just hand it off to Saquon Barkley for getting your ass kicked. Like, you got to go score a touchdown somehow. So look, man, I think these guys are going to get involved. And if you believe in that spread, you have to believe that these guys are going to have some kind of fantasy upside. And again, AOC 5,200 if he gets 15 points, Tommy DeVito 5K if he gets 15 points. That might be enough if Jalen Hurts only gets 19 or 20 because of the pricing.
Yeah, to me it feels like you have these top 4 quarterbacks here. One of them is going to go off. Like, I personally don't think I'm going to need to go down to DeVito and AOC too much. I'll have some because I'll have 100 plus lineups. But I'm going to focus in on Hurts, Mahomes, Purdy, Jackson, and probably try to get to game stacks with them. But like I said, I think Purdy and Lamar, out of my Hurts and Mahomes, I'll probably have less exposure to them because I think that game comes in and probably hits the under. That's just me. I'm just kind of guessing at this point, trying to find an edge. But this is a tough one. This is the best quarterback slate we've had in a while. Let's go to running backs here. So let me sort by salary. Let's just do that and make it easier. Christian McCaffrey, 9,500. Let's look at this. 9,500 is the top price guy on the slate. You got AJ Brown at 8,500. This dude, look at the next highest priced running back. Saquon Barkley, 6,800. Pacheco, 64. Josh Jacobs, 63. Dude, this is nuts, man. But how do we not play Christian McCaffrey? Like, his floor is like 19 fantasy points or 18. He's going to get involved like crazy unless he gets hurt. So what are your thoughts on this? Cover me for a second. I got to let my dog out. But what are you doing with these running backs? We'll get to some of these mid-tier guys here in a second.
Yeah, Christian McCaffrey, I think he's the guy that you probably want to, obviously you want to get as much exposure to him as possible. Excuse me. Given his price though, 9,500, it's just we're gonna have to find different ways to save money. And if he's truly projected to come in at 50% ownership, I don't know, dude. Like, at a certain point, you have to be willing to consider just not playing these guys so that you can gain leverage. Like, if you want, if Christian McCaffrey hits at 50% ownership, you're going to need him in the lineup to kind of get right. But at that point, on a 3-game slate, you're so limited in the different builds that you have that you're probably going to be chopping if that particular game script hits. So, look, man, 9,500, 50% ownership, I definitely think that he's a candidate. You can kind of think about going down to somebody else. Saquon, 20%, nobody's going to be playing him because they're expecting them to lose, right? So, I think you can get a little bit of exposure to Saquon, save the 3K almost, and try and get someone else. But outside of that, man, I don't think you need to get too crazy here. I think maybe Seth is probably where you cut it off. I don't think you get, and honestly, I don't even know if you really need to get too much Clyde Edwards-Helaire, right? If we hear that Isaiah Pacheco is good to go, then I might honestly just cut my line off at Gus Edwards. And to your point, if Josh Jacobs, I knew you scrolled there. If Josh Jacobs is out, Zamir White's in play, but I don't know if I'm necessarily going to be, taking too many stabs on that. If I'm going to be trying to save money to that capacity, like I think I might just again go over to the Giants wide receivers.
Yeah, I think the value. I don't think I'm going to find like I'm not going to go basement bargain value here for running backs. I'm going to stick with the studs. This is my bad, but we didn't even mention that Keaton Mitchell is on IR, tore his ACL. So Gus Edwards is now the guy. He's not the sexiest guy, and he's very touchdown dependent. But like Gus Edwards getting 3 touchdowns off of 1-yard runs is not out of the question. And he's 5,700. You're going to need to find one of these rando running backs in this 5 to 6K range, or 6,800, to pair with McCaffrey. And to me, using the ownership, maybe if I have McCaffrey, maybe I go down to Gus or something. I don't know. But Pacheco to me at 6,400 is kind of in like the sweet zone. If you had one guy to pick from here, who are you going with?
Besides the value, or just overall?
Overall, besides McCaffrey, we know what's going on with that. If you had like Barkley, Pacheco, if Adams is active, I haven't even talked about Swift here. He's 6K, and he's one of my favorite plays on the slate at 6K.
Yeah, probably. I mean, honestly, probably DeAndre Swift. I guess DeAndre Swift and Pacheco, like they're probably going to be staples in my lineups. If Pacheco's out, then obviously Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but Pacheco's fine. He'll probably get the start.
All right, let's go to wide receivers. So AJ Brown 8,500, Debo 77, Devontae Adams 73, Devontae Smith 71, Ayuk 67, and Rashee Rice is 65. Like there's so many of these dudes that I want to play. We're only going to at max be able to play 4 of these guys. I think this feels like a flex wide receiver sort of slate, and we'll get to some value here in a second. But AJ Brown to me feels like he's one of the better plays on the slate, and his ownership's going to be pretty low. But Rashee Rice looks like right now he's coming in around 50% ownership because that 6,500 price tag, being the number 1 wide receiver on the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes, feels like a good spot, and he's trending up, man. Every week he just seems to be getting better. So what are we doing with these wide receivers, man? I don't want to get too much into it. We could sit here and talk about Debo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk and Devontae Adams all day, but we're gonna have to make some tough decisions here. And no matter what we do, we're gonna have to leave one of these top end guys out, right?
Yeah. So look, I mean, what I'm seeing right here is, you consider Rashee Rice for cash. You consider Christian McCaffrey for cash, and like, look, man, maybe you don't consider CMC for GPP, and you come off Rashee a little bit. Like, there's no reason that Devontae Adams should be 15% owned when you have Rashee Rice at 50%. I understand that there's a price difference there. It's a matchup, this and that, but like, man, for $800 more, I can get to Devontae Adams. Dude's a stud. We know what he can do, man. That tier right there, Devontae Adams, Debo, Devontae Smith, all under 20% ownership. And when we look at the other guys, right, it's because people want to maybe pay up a little bit for AJ Brown. I don't even know if they're getting there. Looks like people are projecting to pay for CMC and then stack with Rashee Rice and Brandon Ayuk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, look, man, damn it. Like, I'm going to be paying for these wide receivers, right? There's no reason those guys should be under 20% owned on a 3-game slate.
Jacoby Myers is 5,200. Zay Flowers 55. Odell. So Odell's in play, obviously, if Zay Flowers is out. If Zay Flowers is in, I'm interested in him. Wandale 3,900. We know he's going to get targeted. We know he's not one of these necessarily big play guys, but he's $3,900. He's probably going to get 7-8 targets, and if he gets you 14-15 fantasy points at 3,900, you're going to wish you had him. Juwan Jennings out, like we said earlier. So like a guy like Justin Watson at 3,500, we can't really trust him. He's kind of touchdown dependent. He's big play kind of dependent, but you probably got to get to some on a 3-game slate. Slayton, we saw Trey Tucker go off the other day, the rookie. I could just keep going down the list here, man. Probably the lowest I'm going is maybe Jalen Hyatt. You got MVS there. That's always kind of a problem to talk about. Isaiah Hodgins had like 3 straight games with a touchdown at one point, or maybe it was 2. I don't know. I'm going to keep talking about Quez Watkins, unfortunately. How far are you willing to go down here, man? Like, it all depends on probably this Zay Flowers news, but value-wise, what are you thinking? And is there any reason to just say, hey, screw it, I'm locking in Rashee Rice because he's probably the best value play?
Yeah, no, I don't think I'm going to do that. Again, like it's a 3-game slate, right? And we got guys at 50% ownership. Coming in under on those guys a little bit is going to be a great way to get some immediate leverage. That said, man, like I don't know if you necessarily need to get too crazy. I'm gonna be using Saber Sim, right, to build my lineup. So if you're hand building, I don't think you probably want to leave New York. I think that's probably where you want to go for value. Outside of that, man, I may have like 5% exposure to Nelson Aguilar because he's part of my Lamar Jackson stacks or something along those lines. Like I'm not necessarily going to eliminate anybody out of the player pool. Maybe Trey Tucker. I don't know if I'm necessarily going to ride his coattails. That's chasing a little bit for me. But look, man, I think you kind of just leave these guys in your player pool unless you're hand building, and then you probably focus on New York.
All right, let's move on to tight end. Travis Kelce, 7,500. George Kittle, 5,500. Dallas Goedert, 47. Waller, 45. Isaiah Likely, now the main guy in Baltimore, 4,200. He's been crushing lately. These are probably the only guys I'm going to consider. Like I did say, there's some Austin Hooper love there at 2,500, bare minimum. Maybe a lineup or two with him. But I think the field, maybe the field wants to get to Kelce and Kittle. But I don't know that you can afford to do so. So, like, are you doing 2 tight end builds here? Are you spreading yourself out? Like, we can't not play Kelce, and Kittle is one of these guys that has 3 touchdown upside as well that can break the slate. You got Goddard, who's hasn't been great, but you could probably fit him in a little bit for value with your Hurts stacks. I don't know that I'm going out of my way to go naked Goddard. And then there's Waller at 4,500, and then you got Isaiah Likely. So dude, like this feels like another tough situation to try to figure out. Are you avoiding Kelce? Are you trying to get to know Kelce here? He might be, right around. He might be one of the lower owned tight ends that we're going to see on this slate as far as the studs go.
Yeah, man. Look, man, I like Travis Kelce. He's going to be one of the better plays, just one of the better tight end plays that you're going to be able to get to. But there's a lot of cost associated with this, and he hasn't necessarily gotten there. That said, this is a division matchup. I do expect him to whoop on the Raiders. And again, like if you have to decide between a low owned stud versus a low owned value play, like I go with the stud. Find a way to get the stud in there. Travis Kelce being at 20% is probably too low. You should probably be closer to 30 or 35%. It's going to be tough to build with him. So I think I'm going to try and get some exposure to him. So I'm not necessarily, reliant upon Dallas Goedert to get there, for example. And this is just a weird range in general. Like the fall off's pretty steep. George Kittle it's 2K less. And again, he has a lead upside too and similar ownership. So look, I think you probably limit your player pool to just these top 5. I'm going to have no problem getting to a shitload of Waller and Likely just because they're cheap enough, man. They're cheap. They're going to give you a little bit of flexibility. And if you have the ability to go double tight end, I think this is a slate you can kind of consider that as well.
Let's go to defense here. So the Eagles are the most expensive at 34. You got the Chiefs, the cheapest defense are the Ravens at 2,500. And the Raiders at 2,300. It's always kind of hard when you have like a compressed slate and to just try to figure out some of these defenses because there's a lot of pretty good defenses here. But to me, like the Eagles, I know they're going up against the Giants, but the Eagles can give up some points here. I don't know that I'm going to be able to afford to get them in the last spot because I feel like I'm going to be filling in my defenses based off of the rest of my lineup. This isn't a situation where you have like a 50% owned defense going up against a really, really like a good defense going up against a really terrible team. So where are you going for defense here, man? I think all these defenses most likely can get you some points. Like even the Raiders at 2,300, if you have a great lineup that you love and they're the only thing that fits, could we see like 6 fantasy points out of the Raiders at 2,300 and helps you get there? What's your strategy here? Are you just going to be spread out like a mofo?
Yeah, I mean, I think you probably play Eagles in cash and then consider how you can get different. Like, I mean, 30% and above on a 3-game slate kind of makes sense, but not when you have a defense that's 1% owned, right? We thought the Bills were the clear jam play on Saturday. It didn't necessarily work out that way. So, I think it's, to your point, if you only end up getting the Raiders defense, but it's the difference between you being able to play like Devontae Adams over, someone someone shitty, I think you take the high upside stud first, and then kind of just land where defense gets you.
Yeah, totally. All right, let's talk about value briefly here. We've already kind of gone through it, and we're hitting about 45 minutes. So let's talk about value. It seems as of now, these projections are all going to change as we get closer, obviously, and some news comes out. But Rashee Rice, position player wise, is probably up there value wise, and even the Chiefs defense we're seeing. But besides that, who's a ceiling type guy that's relatively priced that you feel like can have a pretty good game? I mean, it feels like Wan'Dale Robinson or any of these New York Giants pass catchers are probably the one-offs that you want to grab for value. I'm sure there's some other ones. I mean, we're seeing Austin Hooper up there. But I'd probably be more comfortable getting to Wan'Dale, even though he's $1,400 more. What are your thoughts on some of this value?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Wandell is probably the way to go. And then I know you see Richie James Jr. right there. Again, I think you can. We talk about this all the time with Pat Mahomes. When you have a quarterback like that, you can take random stabs on some of these backup guys in large field GPPs. But right now, it's probably just Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, somebody from New York.
All right, let's get into our lineup builds. Let me transition over here. So we appreciate you guys. Throw us a like. Let's get to, this is a Christmas show. There might not be as many people watching, but help us get to 75 likes. Comment down below. Obviously, join that Discord. That's free. And also for members, we do have a private channel within the Discord just for the YouTube members. We always respond to all that stuff. And we have a pretty damn good Discord going on, where we're not just BSing with picks. We're actually talking about these games and breaking them down to a certain extent. All right, let's talk lineups here, dude. Let's build. We're not gonna build as many lineups because we're waiting for some news. But I want to start with our cash build or our single entry build, like $100 single entry or something. Where are we going, dude? Is this a Hurts situation? Do you want to go down to Purdy and save $900? We don't have to massively like double or triple stack these, and specifically for this slate, I'm probably not. I'm probably going a quarterback and one pass catcher. So where are you going, dude?
Well, first of all, I think this is a slate, like even for single entry, if you want naked Jalen Hurts, I think that's fine. So I think Jalen Hurts is probably the way to go for cash. All
right. So for single entry, do we want to get Swift with him? Is that too weird? Sabersim was loving that. I could change, but or would you rather go to AJ Brown or Devontae Smith or even Goddard? I'm probably not going to get to Goddard, but do you want to just do naked Hurts here?
I'm fine with naked without the receiver. I'm fine with DeAndre Swift, man. I think that's fine.
Let's go Swift. So we got to go McCaffrey here, right? So let's just see how impossible this is to go Hurts, Swift, or Hurts and McCaffrey. So wide receiver, Rashi. You want to go Rashi?
Yeah.
All right. So who's next? Like Debo's expensive. Brandon Ayuk always has high upside potential. Do we want to get our value in there right now? Like, do we want to just, as a proxy, put in Wan'Dale as the Giants guy? Let's just do it now and see where we're at. All right. So here's the big issue though. So we got 2 spots open that we could put a wide receiver in, and you got like 6 dudes that you want to play. So we got to pay up for one guy. What makes the most sense for this particular build? I don't think I'm going Devontae Adams in my single entry. I know he's Devontae Adams, but it feels like this is a Debo, Ayuk, or AJ Brown situation. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, just go. Go Debo. I don't think we're gonna be able to afford really much.
Yeah. So what are we doing at tight end though?
At this point, you have to play Austin Hooper.
Yeah, I mean, you got to play Austin Hooper, which is insane. So let's plug in the cheapest defense we can. We can adjust that, but now you got 4K in this last spot. We've already gotten our Wan'Dale Robinson cheap wide receiver value. This feels like to me, I'm not. There's Justin Watson. It's basically just throw a dart, and I don't like any of them. So what do we do?
Hear me out. Pull out Debo and throw in Jacoby Myers.
All right. Devo, gone. Jacoby Myers, in.
I don't know how I feel about Jacoby for cash, but like giving 6,500, like throwing Pacheco. This still might be a GPP better lineup, but like I don't know. It's a lot better than what we were looking at.
Let's start fresh. Let's go with a little bit cheaper. Let's go to Purdy, dude. Let's go to Purdy. All right, so Purdy, McCaffrey, let's leave it at that for the 49ers. So now we've got to get some exposure to Philly. You want to go Swift again here? Or is this a Pacheco situation?
I mean, I still like Swift, man.
Let's go Swift. Let's get a stud wide receiver in here. See, McCaffrey's screwing this all up. But you just have to play him. For GPPs, it's suicide. I don't want to have a bad Christmas when McCaffrey gets 50 fantasy points. So I don't want to do that. But to me, if somebody put a gun to my head and said, what's the easiest way to get leverage and absolutely crush the slate, it's going to be just don't play McCaffrey. He's going up against Baltimore defense. I'm not going to do that right now, though. And at least for single entry, we got to play McCaffrey. So where do we go wide receiver wise? We got to get to some of these Philly guys. Is this AJ Brown, Devontae Smith? Probably Rashi Rice
AJ Brown.
All right, AJ Brown. Let's go AJ and Rashi. So we're in an okay spot. We're gonna put Wandale in there just to help us out. I'm not getting 100% Wandale, but let's try it. We got about 3K left. Dude, this is one of these slates that's very difficult to build. Let's just put in Raiders. I don't think I'm going to play Raiders my single entry, but let's put it in. Now we're going to have to go down. Is this Austin Hooper again?
Yeah.
Where is he?
He's 2,500. Just put in one of those guys. Doesn't matter.
4,100 in our last flex spot. A bunch of scrub running backs. Watson, Tucker. I mean, you're not in a good spot here. Jump in the Discord. We'll talk more about this single entry. I don't want to spend another 10 minutes trying to dial this in because this is just tough. Let's pull McCaffrey out. Let's put Pacheco in. Let's just see what that does for us. We can actually build lineups now.
Yeah, put in the Philly defense, and then let's go with go to tight end. Yeah, let's throw in.
Probably got to get to
Kittle.
Likely, because with Kittle it only gives us
too expensive.
Yeah, we got to go to Likely.
Yeah.
We haven't even gotten to really any of these Ravens guys yet, and that really worries me. $4,400 in the last spot here. Look, if Christian McCaffrey gets injured, that's the only way I probably don't see him getting there. Maybe Mitchell is in. I'm not gonna look that far ahead though. Boston Scott, you got Odell Beckham. Maybe here. This is one of these situations where the single entry is pretty tough. Let's move on to our GPP builds. This is going to be just as tough, but at least we can make some decisions that are a little easier to swallow. Let's build one GPP lineup here. All right. Make sure you guys jump in the Discord. We'll talk more about this on the day. But who are we going with here for this lineup? Something interesting. Do you want to go Lamar naked? We can go Hurts naked. You can go Patrick Mahomes. What are you thinking?
I don't know if we need to do Lamar naked, but I think we can kind of try and. We can do kind of a weird stack. Maybe go Lamar, Gus Edwards, and then I think Kittle, Ayuk. That might be a really weird way to attack that game.
Yeah, I like that. Kittle, Ayuk. All right, let's go to running back. Yeah. Do you want to leave McCaffrey out of this, or do you want to just build with him because we know we're going to have to?
I think you leave him out of this, man. This is GPP. Dude's going to be 50% owned. He has to score 30 points. He might, but it's the best defense they played in a while.
Let's go to Swift.
Yeah,
here.
I like DeAndre Swift.
All right, so wide receiver wise, let's go. You want to get some Adams? I feel like Rashi Rice here is probably the safest bet because of that price. Or do you want to go a different direction? Do you want to just pay up and then go down to Wandale?
No, this is fine. Leave Rashi in there, and I still like Wandale, man. At that price.
All right,
and
so
what does that leave us?
Let's just put in the cheapest defense and see what that does for us. CEH, Jacoby Myers. You could get to Zay Flowers here. Zay Flowers. There's just a lot of options. You know, Zamir White, if Jacobs is out, there's a ton of options here. The hard part about this slate, dude, is this is too good of a slate. Like we're used to building for these dog shit type slates where there's backup quarterbacks and there's value left and right. We're not doing that here. So to me, I feel like we have to get to as many lineups as we can possibly reserve, like within our bankroll. And if you're hand building, this might be a situation where you start building early on Christmas morning and then adjusting to news. For me, I'm using SaberSim. SaberSim's been crushing for me lately, man. Like I try to put my own input in for GPPs, but for single entry, I usually just listen to what they tell me. So thoughts on this slate overall, man? What did you learn, and what can we kind of start thinking about after watching the show? What are we planning for Christmas?
Yeah, man. I mean, it really just comes down to whether or not you're going to fade Christian McCaffrey. I think that's kind of the don't fight me, don't send me hate mail, but that's kind of the direction I'm headed. Sometimes you just got to remove the name and then just look at ways to get leverage. And on a slate, on 3-game slate where he's going to be 50 plus owned, like I don't know, man. Like maybe I come under the field a little bit. That's the easiest way to build so far.
Yeah, or you could play him in GPPs like crazy and then fade him in your single entry, or vice versa. He's my highest owned player left for best ball. I've got 7 lineups in week 16. I just want to get one through to week 17. Maybe that's enough for me to say, maybe I'll be a little bit under the field on McCaffrey, but I'm not going to be comfortable. And as soon as that game starts and he gets a 60-yard rushing touchdown, I might have to close my laptop. It's all about your risk tolerance. If you're willing to blow, a couple $100, whatever it is that you're playing with, that might just be the route to take. I don't know, man. Anything else to add, dude?
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas. We're out of here in under an hour. We'll see you guys later. Make sure you throw us a like on the way out.